congregation's interim minister. Welcome. We are a theologically diverse community of Unitarian Universalists. Together we grow spiritually and build a community and live our values in the world. Many thanks to our technical crew today, especially to James Johnson, Johns Halstead, Valerie Lambert, for making the magic here possible. You at home will be able to share comments and appreciation, significant milestones during the service. We invite you to share your joys, concerns, and also offer generously through our PayPal program. Please let your friends know through Facebook and Twitter that you're attending at hashtag First Unitarian Hobart. Now please take a deep breath and join us in a spirit of reverence. Please join us in our Prelude. Let us join in our chalice lighting this morning. We gather this hour as people of faith, with joys, sorrows, gifts, and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning, in celebration of the life that we share together. Our opening words today: may we be reminded here of our highest aspirations and inspired to bring our gifts of love and service to the altar of humanity. May we know once again that we are not isolated beings, but connected in mystery and in miracle to the universe, to this community, and to each other. We invite you to join in singing together as you're able in our hymn this morning, "The Morning Hangs a Signal."
Faith above all fear.
We always appreciate the work of our pianist and music director, Jeremy Jacobson. But now we're going to continue our service with our affirmation of faith. In unison, we say, love is the doctrine of this church. The quest for truth is its sacrament. Service is its prayer, and this is our covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another. Please join us in our doxology. From all that dwell below the skies, let songs of hope and faith arise. Let peace, goodwill on earth be sung, through every land, by every tongue. Amen. It is good to be together at this time in all the ways that we can be. Please join me for a moment now of quiet meditation and reflection. Let this be a pause in our lives as we are held by the bonds of this body together in worship. Our meditation reading this morning is by Reinhold Niebuhr. We must be saved. Nothing worth doing is completed in our lifetime. Therefore, we are saved by hope. Nothing true or beautiful or good makes complete sense in our immediate context of history. Therefore, we are saved by faith. Nothing we do, however virtuous, can be accomplished alone. Therefore, we are saved by love. No virtuous act is quite as virtuous from the standpoint of a friend or foe as from our own. And there we are saved by the final form of love, which is forgiveness. Amen, and blessed be. Please join us now in a moment in silence and meditation, reflection, or prayer as you will. Amen, and blessed be. The sermon this morning is entitled, I Just Discovered My Inherent Worth and Dignity, and I Can't Seem to Do a Thing with It. Our first Unitarian principle in everyday living. Now, we covenant to affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of every person. That's the first principle of our Unitarian Universalist Association. And this sentence seems so obvious to many of us, and yet its message is one of the defining characteristics of Unitarian Universalism, in contrast to many other faith traditions. This first of our enumerated principles, along with our seventh principle, respect for the interdependent web of all existence of which we are a part, is one of the two most commonly known and repeated by us. It must be important to us, or else it would not resonate so strongly across time and place. In understanding this first principle, I find three words are central: inherent worth and dignity. Now, Webster's Collegiate Dictionary says that which is inherent is involved in the constitution or essential character of something, belonging by nature or by habit. When looking up this last piece, belonging by nature or habit, really caught my attention. What it says to me is that we make something inherent or more inherent by our actions or by our habits, as well as by recognizing them as an essential part of our being. In addition to affirming our free will, this has important implications for us, which I'll come back to in a few moments. At first glance, the definitions for worth and dignity look almost to be the same, but they hold subtle casual differences. According to some dictionaries, worth is the value of something measured by its qualities or by the esteem in which it is held, and dignity is defined as the quality or state of being worthy, honored, or esteemed. Now, I read this as worth being the reality of having value, and dignity as being the state resulting from having worth. In other words, dignity is the consequence of worth. By putting all three of these ideas together, we are affirming and promoting the essential acquired value of every person and the resulting honor and esteem due to them. Now, I find this very interesting, but you may also ask, so what? And where did this come from anyway? For a Unitarian Universalist, this idea of inherent worth and dignity came from our Unitarian forebears, who rejected the orthodox view of the complete depravity of humanity, whose only salvation could lay in achieving innocence, purity, and perfection through God's grace. Rather, they felt that there is in every person an essential quality of goodness rather than inherent depravity. This was not the same thing as saying no one was sinful or going to pay eternally for transgressions not rectified, but it did lead to a considerable amount of optimism on the part of New England Unitarians in the 19th century. Eventually, the distinguishing observation was made that while Universalists held that God was too good to damn them, Unitarians held they were too good to be damned. Soon, the transcendentalist offspring of Unitarianism, of which we today are direct descendants, took this idea to the next level by pursuing the perfectibility of the soul. While the idea of perfectibility eventually fell away, the idea that we can and should endeavor to be more of what we essentially are has held. Remember, I said the definition of inherent as habit was important. Well, here it is. Our essential worth is not our essential perfection. By recognizing and supporting, by affirming and promoting, that is, the inherent worth and dignity of every person, including ourselves, we can make this quality even more present inherently. I think that's a pretty neat trick. Yet, it is a matter of faith to hold this affirmation, often almost more faith than we can muster. Given the state of our world and our lives at the present, it often takes a lot of faith to believe and affirm in our hearts and in our heart of hearts that we and others are in fact inherently worthy. I dare say that for most of us, it often takes more faith to affirm someone's inherent worth and dignity, especially as you have just become royally ticked off, than it does to believe that they are really a miserable worm, who you hopefully will rot in hell we don't believe in. It's also harder to feel affirmed ourselves when we've done something which in our souls we may be sick about. This is why we covenant together and have each other in community, to remind each other and ourselves, to help, to remind, to heal, and to affirm when we feel weak or afraid, when we have lost faith. We UUs rightly take many philosophical or political stands and support many causes which affirm and promote the inherent worth and dignity of people all over the world. Yet we often forget to practice it with each other, at home, at work, in our volunteer activities. At the same time, we are sharing the ideas of our faith. We have need to practice them first with ourselves. Like our own hearts, which pump oxygen-rich blood to themselves first, we, you, and I, as individuals and as a religious community, must be the first practitioners and recipients of this affirmation of our own inherent worth and dignity. No matter whether we understand our inherent worth and dignity to be of a divine or human origin, we cannot experience it if we are not aware and alive to it ourselves, for ourselves, and in regards to others. We may have all the inherent worth and dignity you could ask for in some abstract state, but unless we treat ourselves and each other that way, it is not a lived or a manifest reality. Unfortunately, in many institutions like churches, where people often act out their most basic needs and insecurities, we can forget this, and we can create situations where individuals become polarized around issues or personalities, which, while they may or may not have their own merits, they basically have little or nothing to do with the intensity of the underlying hungers or fears behind them. This is also very much true with the larger world we live in today. A ministerial colleague of mine once offered a story that illustrates this behavior. Apparently, she and her then new husband, while spending a day at home together, decided to make some muffins. After several frustrating hours and heated exchanges about the different ways and right ways to make muffins, they stopped in their tracks by a flash of insight. Whatever it was they were upset with each other about, it was most certainly not about muffins. These are not experiences unique to any one group of people in the world, but are part of our common humanity. I know that many of you see this type of stuff in your workplace or voluntary groups or perhaps your families. All of us often forget the great charge we give to each other to affirm and promote our inherent worth and dignity. Heaven knows I forget, and I may dance my own anxieties, eventually discovering again that it is myself I have wounded most deeply, even as I have hurt others. I have clothed in my own shadows. It is interesting to me that if those things or people or conditions which I may feel are the externalized indicators of, or even perceived equivalents of my own worth and dignity, are somehow threatened, then I may reactively pass my anxieties on to another and in consequence deny the reality of their worth and their dignity. As a person who works in what is commonly called a helping profession, one of the major issues that we are constantly reminded of by our peers and mentors is the issue of self-care, of taking care of our personal health and welfare. In this vein, I commonly encounter an idea which at first seems to be noble and altruistic, but it is in actuality rather unhealthy and codependent. I know many of you have heard something like this statement. If you don't take care of yourself, you can't take care of whoever it is or whatever it is you're supposed to take care of. Now, there's often some literal truth to this. If we don't eat, sleep, exercise, we will not be in any shape to meet our obligations. But the reason to take care of ourselves is not because we owe it to some outside agency, whether it is God or a family member or for some that may think the same way. We take care of ourselves because we are inherently worthy, powerful, precious, and holy. As the Reverend Mark Bellatini has written in one of our well-known benedictions, take care of yourselves as bodies, for you are a good gift. Now take a moment and let that soak in a little bit. What does it mean if you're doing the self-care of your being, not because you have to slog through another day at work to pay your rent, or take care of your kids, or a parent, or meet your internalized version of someone else's expectations of what you think you should be doing, but because you are a piece of the sacred cosmos and you love yourself for it. Because we are embraced by the womb of stars and the remnants of the fiery furnaces are still pulsing through our veins. Because you are a good gift. I know that in my own case, it not only lifts my spirits and my mood to remember such, but it motivates me to do more of that which I know to be right for myself, such as getting to the gym or workout, or nowadays taking that walk with my kids outside, and eating right and saying yes to emotionally healthy situations, and saying no to those that are not. I do not always manage to stay aware, but I do try to remember when I remember, and to embrace that as well. I seek to be as humanly excellent and wise as I can be, and to cherish and respect myself, even when I am in my doubt and my despair. If we do not own the reality that at the core, that at all of our cores, our own inherent worth and dignity are already essentially intact and present within us, and are not dependent on things or conditions or people external to ourselves, then we may inadvertently project our fears of insufficiency onto others. If we are not acting out of our own sense of worthiness, then we are less likely to be able to affirm the worth of others. So how do we stop this from happening over and over again in our lives? How do we not do this? How do we become more affirmed and affirming and less fear-driven? One of the many recent things that I have learned over the years is through my training in hypnosis, and it is reinforced that, as with any human activity, we generally become most proficient at those things we practice being proficient in. So we become more fearful by being fearful. conversely, we become more affirming by being affirming. My own experiences and intuition tell me that by actively and consciously affirming others, not only do we become more affirming of them, but we become more accepting of ourselves. Also, as we work to be more affirming of ourselves, we are more able to affirm others. Not only does form follow function, but function follows form. What we do shapes who we are as much as who we are shapes what we do. As Ralph Waldo Emerson has warned us, that which dominates our imaginations and our thoughts will determine our lives and character. Therefore, it behooves us to be careful what we worship, for that which we are worshiping, we are becoming. The oft-quoted author Henry James offered his advice to his nephew Billy, saying, "There are three things that are important to human life. First, to be kind. The second is to be kind. And the third is to be kind." What the repetitious nature of this advice by Henry James does for me is to remind me that this kindness is not a noun, a perfect state of being we arrive at. Rather, it is a verb, a constant exercising of our being in the world. The purpose is not to be enduring, self-martyring saints, but rather to be more empowered and empowering human beings, to make our worth and dignity more inherent by our habits as well as our natures. This is the quality I see when people in Hindu and Buddhist traditions bow to the worthy, the holy in each of us. The Baal Shem Tov, legendary founder of the Hasidic Judaism, is reported to have said that we all have the divine spark within us, and it's up to each of us to blow that divine spark of flame in each other. As 19th century Unitarian luminary A. Powell Davies wrote, "Each lighted by the same precarious, flickering flame of life." Affirmation is not an attaboy backslapping encouragement with the endurance of a 15-second commercial. It is also not a 15-minute sermon. It is a religious discipline. It is a way of life. As Unitarian Universalists, it is our discipline, and it is part of our way of life as individuals and a religious community. Part of the purpose of small group ministries, essentially things like covenant groups and choirs, is to provide places and times that intentionally allow and focus us in methods of consciously practicing our affirmation. We will not be perfect in this, and will often forget to let and will let urgent overwhelm the important. What we can do, though, is to commit to the practice of remembering to remember when we remember. We will remember to remember when we remember. As human beings, it is the best we can do, and if we commit to it, it may well be enough. It is our gift and our responsibility to share and act in word in our larger community, which so obviously needs to be reminded of its own and others' inherent worthiness and dignity. This is why we practice such things like communal safety and safe distancing. As Unitarian Universalists, we acknowledge that as inherently worthy beings, we really are enough in ourselves, even as we fall short in much of what we would do and be, and in turn, we need each other, that which we call holy. Daily we struggle, individually and collectively, to embrace our failures and our successes, and to own our shadows. We are open to the constant incremental revelations of life, realizing that with compassion and courage, we can become wiser and more enlightened from our encounters with our own brokenness and that of others. Together, we are affirming and promoting the essential and acquired value of every person and the resulting honor and esteem due to them. As we move through our lives day by day with the joy and hope of this excellent wisdom, we in turn have a choice and a chance to make the world wiser and more excellent places for ourselves and for all that is. Our inherent worth and dignity is not a badge of perfection. Rather, it is an acknowledgement of the unique and beautiful value and esteem, which is ours simply by virtue of being. It is also a call to share and live this message, this gospel of hope, daily with ourselves and each other, by witnessing with our very lives and by remembering to remember when we remember, to engage in the disciplines of self-care, excellence, and wisdom, of kindness and respect. We affirm and promote and enlarge the inherent worth and dignity of all. So be it. Our offering, while the music plays, you're invited to make monetary offerings. And you can make an offering anytime after the service as well. After that, we will enjoy our hymn as tranquil streams.
As tranquil streams that meet and merge and flow as one to seek the sea, our kindred hearts and minds unite to build a church that shall be free from the bonds that bind the mind. Narrow thought and lifeless greed, free from a social code that fails to serve the cause of human need, a freedom that reveres the past but trusts the dawning future more, bids the soul in search of truth that venture boldly and explore. Prophetic church, the future waits your liberating ministry. Go forward in the power of love, proclaim the truth that makes us free.
Thank you. Please join us now in our closing words. Be ours a religion which like sunshine goes everywhere, its temple all space, its shrine the good heart, its creed all truth, its ritual works of love, its profession of faith, divine living. May the Eternal bless you and protect you. May the Eternal smile upon you and favor you. May the Eternal befriend you and prosper you and all people in all places always. Amen, and blessed be. Please join us for our postlude and then the extinguishing of our chalice. As we extinguish our chalice together, let us say in unison, we extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Amen. Blessed be, and go in peace and wellness.